You are resilience, can't you see? You got fire, you got peace. You bend, you break, but still you heal. That's the power that's so real. You are resilience through and through. You've done what others couldn't do. No matter what you're going through, the world's brighter because of you. Every fall just taught you flight. You learned to glow in the night. Even when your voice would shake, you found courage you could make. So don't doubt what's in your soul. You've got magic pure and whole. You're living proof of what it means to turn pain into dreams.
Hey, welcome to episode 1, the very first episode of SoulSpectives podcasts from survival to soul. Oh my goodness. I'm still pinching myself that I'm here. So thank you for being here. If you're here with my first show on my own, it's a new adaptation. I'm so used to talking with people, so I'm going to be learning how to have that same flow with you all here watching, even though I don't see you. And the reason I'm here is I believe in humanity so much. It makes me cry. I believe so much in the capacity for people to heal and to grow and to transform beyond pain into purpose, and not as a slogan, but as a reality. My life is a testimony to that, and my life has pushed me to this point to share. And that's what I believe all of our lives are for. You know, at the essence of things, we're all here to contribute something. We're all here to discover, who are we? What is that moves me and makes me feel alive? What is it that makes life meaningful? And it's such an important question. And when we start seeking for meaning through our experiences, something new opens, a new doorway opens. When we break out of the habits of the stories we tell ourselves, because this happened, I'm this, because that happened, I'm this. Well, we can break out of those stories and just even for a moment entertain a new possibility that there might be something more. There might be something more for us in life. And there might be something behind the experience of pain or trauma or loss. And I don't say that lightly, because I've gone through my gamut. I've climbed the Mount Everests of my own mind, body, and soul, to a point that I've recognized that with over 30 years that I've also had the privilege of walking side by side with people, helping them find their resilience, helping them to reorientate themselves to a better relationship with themselves in life. That better landmarks, when we have better landmarks, when we have better orientation, our life changes, because then healing becomes less of a battle and more of an adventure. And what I've seen in this industry of healing and coaching and everything, I just, my heart is touched that I'm here, is there's a piece missing, and I feel like it's the soul that's missing, and it's missing the orientation of understanding, who are we in this world? What is my sense of place and purpose here? And even the journey of going to explore and understand that, which I think is what all of our journey is. Our journey is to learn, who am I? What am I? Right? And, you know, the other thing that I've discovered too is that, so orientation is the first thing, landmarks, having places and ways to orientate ourselves. And then the next one is realizing that everything is about relationship. Absolutely everything. My relationship to myself, my relationship to life, my relationship to my past, my relationship to my future, my relationship to my family, my relationship to nature. Everything is about relationship. And it's so interesting that the trends have been about, individuality and being my own person, and, I don't need anybody. But the simple fact is it's not true. We need each other. We need each other in order to know ourselves. We need the mirrors. We need the conflict. We need the stress, because without conflict and stress, there's no growth and no movement. So when I realized that my relationship to stress and challenges is also a very important relationship to know. How do I relate to life and myself when a challenge hits? When there's a challenge, a fight with my spouse, when I can't get through to my kid, right? When business is slow, what are these challenges trying to bring out in me? And that's what I've realized is key: orientation and relationship. And then from there, we can create like a living architecture of becoming. But those are the foundation. And we need a foundation in order to move in life. And without a foundation, we just kind of, we drift, we get lost, we get confused, we follow all of the impulses of our survival nature, and we lose sight of a bigger picture. And so getting a bigger picture is so important. So, we all want peace. We all want meaningful relationships. We all want confidence. We all want to stop repeating the patterns that we know. We've already defined them. We understand them, but yet we still live them. So we all want to break free from that. And we want to feel at home in ourselves in the world. These are all basic needs that unite all of us. Every single human being, we all want these things. This is our commonality. And the question is, if we want these things, why is lasting change so difficult? And I've spent my life asking those questions and answering those questions. And life has given me some really beautiful gems of wisdom and tools to navigate these terrains that seem like life is working against us, but actually it's life working with us and for us. Because what I've learned to see is that whenever there is something that's not working in my life, it's because it's not right for me, or because there's a learning in there for me that life is bringing me to, so I can know myself better, know my partner better, know life better, know my business better. And so that understanding that, okay, if everything is relationship, then how do I identify what this challenge is bringing up for me in order to come into deeper relationship with myself and life? And for me, that's the source of suffering. In my observation, my own self, it's the feeling of disconnection from life, the feeling of being forsaken from life, the feeling of not knowing how to make it through, right? And what that reveals is that life isn't the problem. Problems aren't the problem. And the biggest problem we have too is we think that we shouldn't have any problems. And that's such a big one. And I've been speaking to that for so long. If we think that we shouldn't have problems, then we're going to get kind of frustrated with life pretty much every day, because there's going to be kinks in our days. There's going to be kinks in our relationships. There's going to be challenges in our business and everything. So the first thing is, with the orientation, is to understand problems happen. They will happen. They're inevitable. Conflict will happen. It's inevitable. Triggers will happen. It's inevitable. What matters is, how do I navigate through them? How do I meet them in such a way that I can actually create something good, right? So if our greatest struggle isn't life itself, then it's the relationship we formed with ourselves through our experiences of life and the definitions we've given, the stories we believe, the meanings we've made, the identities we've carried, and what comes to mind, or when I was thinking about this episode, were two poems that came across my path actually this week. And one of them is by John Milton. And he says, "The mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell and a hell of heaven." And that's such a beautiful, beautiful saying. And it's true. We are the meaning makers of our life, right? We are the meaning makers. Let that sink in for a second. We can't always change what happened. Well, actually, we can't. We can't control external circumstances. but we can change the relationship we have with what happened, and we can change how we relate to what happens in the moment as it does. So ultimately, healing does not erase the past, it just redefines and transforms our relationship with it, so we give it a meaning that actually can benefit me. And this is what I've done in my life. I've had a lot of situations that I wrote in my book, Resilience, Grace, and the Art of Showing Up, that should have really broken me, but they didn't, because I've always had this mantra in me that no matter what happens, I will grow and I will learn. And because of that meaning that I gave to pain, also from Khalil Gibran, pain is the cracking of the shell that enfolds your understanding. So these were foundational orientation pieces in my life from very early on. Thankfully, I came across, that poem from Khalil Gibran because it gave me strength. So if we're the meaning makers, then that means I have choice when something happens to me. How do I can't change it to happen, but how do I turn it into something that's useful for me? Because if it's happened, it's happened. And then the next step is, what is my choice to do with what happened with me, right? And another piece of what keeps us stuck in ourselves too is a poem I want to share from Pearl Bailey. And she writes, there is a period of life when we swallow a knowledge of ourselves and it becomes either good or sour inside. Again, the meaning making, right? So I know for me, I've struggled. My main struggle was rejection my whole life, because I had tons of rejection in my childhood, from bullying in school, my mother leaving when I was 7, and on and on and on. And that set up a foundational program in me. I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy. I'm not enough. I'm too much. I need to shrink in order to adapt. Those were my key things. And it took years and years of rewiring, first getting to know, why do I believe I'm not enough, right? The beliefs that became sour because of experiences that I didn't have the orientation to understand at the time when I was young. And that's for me one of the key things, is to realize that a lot of our troubles is we just don't have the right orientation to understand them and to place ourselves in the path of life where we can make sense of what's happening to us and who we are and why we are who we are. And for me, that's an essential journey, on the journey of fulfillment and happiness, also on the journey of success if you're an entrepreneur. For me, stepping into being an entrepreneur, I didn't step in it because I'm going to be a business person. I stepped in it because I have something to share. But I can tell you, every step of the way has been a challenge, because it makes me meet me. There's that friction. There's that tension that happens in life when something wants to be created, right? And so there's a tension that happens and a friction that happens in us when something happens too. What do we do with that friction? Two sticks rubbing together. It seems, when you just look at the sticks, it's wearing away the sticks, it seems harmful, but there's a flame. There's a third creation that comes from that friction. And so having that understanding has helped me a lot. And I've worked with women now for 30 years, helping women also regain that inner understanding and the capacity to navigate challenges, to orientate self when there's challenges that are arising, because without that, we're just lost. And that's why I'm here. And I was crying in the beginning because, it's so on my heart to, I see people suffering, and I see there's so many, even just small little pieces of information that can create a whole different trajectory. It doesn't have to be a big thing, like one of my favorite metaphors is there is a boat at sea, and if you change your trajectory, your compass, to 0.0005 degrees difference, in the beginning you don't see any change, but eventually you completely end up somewhere new. And for me, that metaphor, I think I learned that in my 20s, and that just also, it added to my toolkit, right? We all need a toolkit to navigate life. So that was one of my visuals to remind me in moments when it feels like nothing's happening, that no, as long as I stay committed to the change that I'm wanting to bring into my life, I stay committed to, I will learn, I will grow. I'll crash along the way. It's not about being perfect. I'm going to fall and crash, and each fall and crash is going to teach me to. But what is happening habit now is what used to make me fall and crash and stay crashed for like weeks and sometimes even months on end. Now it's kind of like a few minutes and it's okay. And that's the thing. Sometimes people think that healing means you'll never be triggered and never have challenges again, but you'll always have challenges as long as you're alive. It's like new levels in a video game, right? So you spend 100 times playing level 1 and you get the tools for level 2, but you have to develop new ones at level 2. And so adversarial experiences and challenges with that lens, it keeps us in movement, moving forward. And movement is life. We're not meant to set up residency in our challenges. We're not meant to set up residence in our pain. All of these are essential experiences to become who we are. Without pain, there's no joy, truly. And I can attest to that. My pain, the pains that I've gone through, and there have been many, I repeat that again, but now I can honestly just say, wow, they shaped me so much. They made me dive deeper into me. They made me question, who am I? Why am I here? Like I was saying, the relationship and orientation. What is my relationship to life? What is this underlying intelligence that governs everything that's invisible? It's beating my heart right now. It sees fit that I'm here, so clearly I must be enough if I'm here. So my big spiel, I speak German too, so every now and then I throw in some German words because it's just it's in my mind. And recently we have a young woman working with us here at our retreat center, and she's German, so I'm speaking German all the time. So sometimes it might come out a little bit. But my big spiel, my big piece is, we master our triggers, we can master our life. When we understand our nervous system and our biology, when we understand the nature of survival brain, then we can start to learn to create a pathway, a bridge, so that we can start intentionally developing and growing our frontal brain, which is the part of our brain that's able to navigate, that's able to see connecting the dots, that's able to discern truth versus react to situation. And the biggest journey is shifting from survival to our frontal brain, right? And first we have to understand what's actually happening, because otherwise we tend to believe that every strong feeling means it's truth, and it's not. So I'm just going to invite everybody to just take a deep breath in. I've just really shared a lot of information there. And take a deep breath and just let that land. And I invite you to, put some of this to use right here and now. Where are you feeling the pressure and the friction of a challenge, of a pain, of a trauma that's still held in your body? And I'm going to invite you to breathe into it and just be with it, because a key for healing, which for me means to integrate, is first we have to be with what is. We can't change what is until we're with it. And so a lot of what we tend to do is we tend to work around the wound, but we very rarely land right in it to sit in the pain, because we're afraid we won't survive the pain. And there's a process to do that, right? To be able to land in the center of your pain, but to remain the observer and the director of where you go with it. And that's why we need orientation. We need tools that orientate us to a bigger picture of life. So if life is built on contrast, which it is, right? No light, no dark, no pain, no joy, no friction, no creation, right? So then we start to understand that contrast is the primary teacher of life. It's our primary learning and lesson. And I call it the dance of duality, learning to dance with duality. I spent many years doing improvised dance. And one day I'd sitting at the subway after a class, I'm like, wow, life is just an improvisation. Each moment we're learning to meet and navigate. And that's how we're alive, right? So when we can be fresh enough to meet the moment, for what the moment is, right? But what happens is when we get caught in our pains and our stories, we're no longer meeting the moments as they are. We're meeting them with the filter of the pain of the past and the stories we've written about ourselves and the life and everything. And this is why, for me, it's so important to take that time to know myself, to reflect, When I have a trigger, I take a deep breath and then I go inside my body and I say, whoa, where am I feeling this? And what is this? What is this relating to? Where have I known this feeling before? And that's sort of the following the breadcrumbs of my own body, because our body is the measure of truth. It can't deceive us. We can deceive ourselves with our thoughts and our mind, but the body, that is the measure of truth. And so that's why somatic work is so important when we're doing healing work, not just mind, verbal therapy, not just spirituality. We need also to be able to work with our body, the somatic sense, and to learn to regulate our nervous system so that our soul can actually embody. And that's my whole thing right there. That's what I have learned so deeply in my life, and I live every single moment. Even coming on here to do my first podcast, I had to apply everything that I'm sharing with you here. Okay, deep breath. I'm safe. I'm good. I have a strong foundation. Let me access my foundation. Let me dig my roots deeper. And that brings me to an example I want to bring in nature. I'm just going to take a sip of an experiment they did in Arizona a while back. And what they did is they created a biodome. And in this biodome, the plants grew without adversity. The trees grew, and they grew faster, and they grew taller. But one day they just fell over. And they're like, why did they just fall over? This should be the perfect environment. There's no challenge, right? Well, what happened is because there was no wind, right? The trees need the wind to actually produce a certain substance within them that makes them stronger, and also to guide the roots to dig deeper and hold tighter to the ground. So just think about that for a minute. The tree just fell over because it had no resistance. A lot of people say resistance is bad, friction is bad. It's not. We need it. This tree needed the wind. It needed the pressure, to the wind pushing it opposite of where it wanted to go. It needed to give that counter force to grow stronger. And that's how I understand challenges and adversity. It's a force that makes us rise. It makes us dig deep into life more fully, except when we avoid it and we run away from it. And avoidance actually creates more of a problem than encountering and engaging, because avoidance creates a weakness in us. It creates, when we avoid meeting a challenge, when we avoid meeting problems, when we avoid the conversation we don't want to have, when we avoid, asking for the raise, when we avoid sharing what we really feel, what we're telling ourselves repeatedly is then that it's not safe to be me. And we don't even realize we're doing it. This is one of the biggest blind spots. And then we go into all this excessive self-care. Well, I need to care for myself. I can't have this energy in my field. I can't have this there. And I've been there. I've done this. So I know. At one point, only spirituality defined my world until I got into neuroscience and I started understanding biology. And that was actually the key that set me free. So I could integrate the spirituality and the science together. Right? So we need to be able to confront and meet the challenges of our life. And it doesn't mean we know what's going to happen after we do, because we don't. But we need to develop that courage to meet those challenges in a way that we can actually grow our own confidence, because without meeting those challenges, our confidence goes down. And then we wonder why we're miserable. And then we wonder why we feel not worthy. And we wonder why, why can't I do this? But that's why we need to make those moves in our life to meet the pressures and then create and build ourselves from them. Right? And so SoulSpectives for me, that word came through, I guess it's a few years ago when I first was entertaining the idea of doing online trainings and classes. And I was working with Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi in a training. And because my path is so diverse, sound healing and movement therapy, massage, coaching, traditional Hawaiian healing, all of these different things that I've done, I was feeling like energy where I was feeling like, how do I get everything in a course, right? How do I do that? And I was feeling really frustrated. And so went to the beach one day with my family, and I decided, I was laying down having a nap, and I just said, okay, life, God, for me, God is a good word. I enjoy that word. You don't have to like it, but there is this force of intelligence that is behind all things, behind the curtain. And so I was just tuning in and say, okay, you know what everybody needs or what I need for this. So please, give me some guidance. And then all of a sudden I was in that sort of half sleep, half dream state, and I heard this word, SoulSpectives. And I was like, SoulSpectives. And then I heard it again. And then I woke up. I went, what is that? And then I looked it up and it didn't exist. And I was thinking about it and went, well, yeah, it's like looking from the soul, vantage point of the soul. And I went, wow, that was amazing, because I realized that that's exactly what had brought me through my whole life. I innately have been doing that since I was a child, looking for the astronaut view, right? When we see from above, we can start to see patterns and dynamics that if we're too close, we can't see, right? And so SoulSpectives became an institute through my husband, because I said, well, still it's too small. He says, well, turn it into an institute, and then you can put all of your trainings and everything you do there. And so that's how SoulSpectives came to be. And so SoulSpectives, as a definition that I've given to it, it's the practice of learning to see ourselves and life through the wider perspective of soul, which is connected to that infinite intelligence, where understanding replaces judgment, relationship replaces separation, and possibility expands naturally. So take a deep breath in that way right now. Just imagine you're able to sort of bring your perception to a broader view, that you can sort of look at your life as a tapestry or a mosaic, and you can start seeing the different patterns, there are different repetitions, and explore, I see I've been repeating this pattern in this way. What is the root of that? Let me explore it. And what I like to say is we all have an inner Google search, right? The moment we ask a question, Google, our inner Google, is like looking for the answer for us. Sometimes it comes right away. Sometimes it comes a little bit later. But sort of we access our inner Google and say, okay, what is this pattern? Where does it come from? And then we find new ways to navigate through it, right? And so just take a deep breath with that. The video game, astronaut view, these are really relatable ways to frame it, or the biodome, right? To see that it's so important to have friction in our life. It's so important to meet it with awareness and relationship to life, and to take that astronaut view so that our survival brain can actually relax, because the survival brain is always looking at the narrow. It's always looking at life like this. And then if we don't learn to expand that view, what happens is it goes narrow, 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 and then our nervous system becomes even more compromised, because we can handle less and less and less, and then we become super, super sensitive. I was there. Super anxious. I was there. Super paranoid. I was there at one point, because everything narrows. And for me, one day I woke up and I realized life doesn't want me to live narrow like this. This can't be good. It's isolating me. It's keeping me trapped in feelings I don't want to be in. And so that was a turning point, and I started expanding. And that's when I started getting more into neuroscience and understanding my biology. How do I do this? How do I rewrite my biology so that I can play in life again? Because my nature is playful. It's joyful. It always has been. But the situations that I encountered in my life had created some interruptions in that. But fortunately, I always remembered who I was before the interruptions, and that's what kept me looking. And I always had that connection. So my invitation with the SoulSpectives is to take a deep breath and let yourself have a bigger picture. I could go into so much more here. I don't want to overwhelm. I'm so excited to be here, right? I could just blah, 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 blah. I could go on and on and on. But just take that moment and just say, wow, where could my life benefit from a broader view right now? Where have I locked myself in beliefs about myself and life and people and situations that may not be a complete truth? There may be a little bit of truth there, but it might not be complete. It might not be a full truth. And then to just open to the possibility, right? I spent my life traveling around the world. I was all over Europe and Asia and Middle East and both just on my own pilgrimage with myself, and I had the privilege of studying with some really amazing masters. And so I bring a lot to the table from different cultures, from different walks of life. And for me, that's the beauty of different cultures. That's the beauty of different traditions, is that they all point to the same thing in a different way. And when we can start seeing the commonalities in what all of these paths, traditions, spiritualities, science, everything, all points to organization, the organizing principle of love, which is intelligence. And it's what we're all seeking, and we seek it because we know it exists, and we know we are programmed to love. And so the seeking is because we're like the video game, we're trying to get to the level that we can actually experience it, fully the way we want to feel it, right? So knowing what to do and being able to do it are not the same thing. And so that's why it's so important to implement things right away. Like, if anything spoke to you in this podcast that I just shared, take a moment when it finishes and breathe with it and put it into action in your life right away. And to understand, that your nervous system is a prediction machine, but you can program your nervous system. If it's an outdated program, you can reprogram it. It's just there to protect us. But if the threat's already gone, which most often it is, then we can rewire ourselves. We can teach ourselves a new way, right? And then we can start cultivating the life that we really, really want to live. Because healing can only happen when the reality we've created within ourselves becomes trustworthy enough that our nervous system can update its map. And that's basically what I help people do, is to update their map. I don't give people my map. I give a map so people can find their map, which is pretty cool. It's really awesome how life has, taught me and used me in this way, through all my pains and struggles. Now here I am, and who knows where this is going to go. But the journey for me is just showing up moment for moment for moment, show up to the opportunity, show up to an opening. This became an opportunity to do this podcast on my own. So I stepped into it. Was I nervous? Absolutely. Did I have to work a lot of stuff through? Absolutely. But the difference is I have the tools. So, this kind of stress doesn't tear me down into the pits of despair and fear anymore like it used to. It's a creative force that I work with to strengthen myself intentionally. And that's very different. And this is what I invite you to explore as a possibility too, so that you can really claim your own soul sovereignty in your life and freedom from the patterns and the pain that still hold you in patterns that don't serve you. So, simple practice to finish today. These are the 4 pivotal points. Like, think of it like in First Nations, they have the medicine wheel, the 4 directions. So this is the compass that I offer. So the center is you, the self. Okay. Okay. Then relationship I've placed in the West. Coming into relationship with yourself and life. Orientation I've put in the North. Observation. Learn to observe. So in relationship, we take a breath. In observation, in orientation, we observe. And then to the East, I have participation, because that's what life is asking us to do all the time. It's asking us to participate in life, to take action. So there's that expression, progress, not perfection, but I say participation first. Participation, which leads to progress, which leads to, for me, excellence. I don't say perfection, because perfection means that something is finished and concluded, whereas excellence, that's an ongoing journey of becoming better, deeper, deeper, more mastery in who we are and what we do, right? So relationship, orientation, participation. Take a new action today. And transformation is the inevitable outcome from engaging in relationship, orientation, and taking new steps, right? So people are chasing transformation, but the way to transform is actually to come into relationship with yourself and life, and to breathe and observe and take these new actions. And then it's inevitable. It's just, it's automatic that you're going to start connecting to the deeper of life when you take those actions. So take a deep breath. Pause. Observe. and really affirm, I'm safe here and now, because you're sitting in your home, or you're watching your phone, wherever you are. If you're having anxiety, really affirm, I'm here, my 5 fingers, I'm right here, right now. When you get carried away by anxieties of the future or fears of the past, right? Or regrets of the past, bring yourself back here now. And then when there's a trigger with that, then ask your nervous system, what is it trying to protect me from, that I can look at and see and identify, so that I can bring awareness and observation there, and then I can heal it. And it's not about forcing an answer. It's just about planting the seeds, the inner Google search. Put it in and you'll be amazed. Your answers will come. And all your answers are from within you. Anything me or another person that does healing or coaching can do, we can just provide the environment and hold the space based on what we have experienced, what we have come to in our life, how deep we've gone into ourselves. And that's all I do here, is I'm holding that space and offering some nuggets that life has given me. And I will keep offering nuggets with each show as I get more aligned. This kind of went like, blah, 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 it went a little bit off of what I wanted, but also it's just perfect, right? Because I'm a little bit nervous and I'm excited at the same time, and I'm learning a new structure. And that's the thing. Anything new will always feel uncomfortable, and to be comfortable with that. And I am. And that's why I can just share it here. And yeah, this is the truth of me in this moment. And it's a beautiful truth, because I'm stepping out of my comfort zone and I'm learning something new. And I'll keep learning with each episode that I do here. So I invite you to be kind with yourself. Be kind with yourself and understand that, again, knowing something does not provide the transformation. It creates the invitation to participate in the transformation through coming into relationship, through gaining new orientation, right? So take a deep breath with that. I know I've said a lot, and I may have gone over time, I think probably too, but this is the first show, so we had the technology gremlins in the beginning that we were working with that delayed our start, and now I've probably gone over time, but that's okay. That's all good. And so for this week, my SoulSpective quote for you to explore is, to anchor in that healing doesn't begin when we finally have the answers, because we often think that that's how it happens. It begins the moment we become curious to ask these new questions and to seek new orientation that can help us navigate those inner landscapes with greater grace and greater ease. So keep breathing. The breath is the key. Breath brings us into the moment. And then from there, see what happens. And I thank you for joining me today. And yeah, thank you for spending this time. And until next time, please stay curious, stay compassionate with yourself, and above all, stay connected in relationship to yourself and to life. And we'll see you next week for episode 2. Thank you so much, SoulSpectives podcast, from survival to soul. Thank you for joining me today. Bye for now.